Hi everyone and welcome back. I've got an interesting video for you today. Hopefully it's not a video you'll ever need, but you might do. I'm going to cover what to do if you have an escaped ball python. But before we get too far into it, I just want to remind everyone that I do have a lot of babies still available this year, and I'm going to put in a link to my morph market in the description below. If you see something you like, just let me know that you've subscribed to the channel and I'll give you a big chunk off the price. So there you go. This is a yellow belly fire male and he's available on there, so feel free to message me and ask about him. But now getting to the video, an escaped ball python is something that, I don't know, it shouldn't ever happen, but it does seem to happen, and I have to admit that one of mine did escape years ago. Bobby, who we saw in my previous video, I was handling him during my how to assist feed ball pythons video. He actually escaped years ago and he made it out of the spare room where his enclosure was, and he made it all the way into the kitchen, and I found him in the pots and pans in a cupboard. So they are good at it. They're really slow and methodical, so if you have any gap in their enclosure, they kind of just prod around and feel around at night when you're asleep, and they'll spend all night if they have to, just looking for a way out. And if there is a way out, a ball python will get out of its enclosure. They're not exactly athletic, but they're consistent. So it's a good thing to know about. So first off, if your ball python has escaped, the very first thing to do is don't panic. And then the second thing to do, my top tip, is look behind the enclosure it's escaped out of. You won't believe how many times the snake is either behind its enclosure or behind the nearest piece of furniture. And what I kind of employ to look for one if it escapes, or what I would employ, is what I call the psychology method. So it's getting down on all fours and thinking like a ball python. And this means, where would you go if you were a ball python and you escaped? How would you react? How does their sensory ecology affect how they react? And this is where it gets confusing, because we're constantly told now that ball pythons aren't really nocturnal, that they're semi-arboreal, stuff like that. And that doesn't really fit with their biology, anatomy, morphology, the design of their pupils, their coloration, anything like that. The reality is that in an evolutionary sense, they very much are terrestrial, nocturnal, and occasionally crepuscular. So what this means is that if they get out and the lights are on, they're going to automatically look for the darkest place they can see, like a darkness-seeking missile. I was going to say missile, but they're not missiles because they're slow, like a darkness-seeking slug, pretty much. But their main priority is having somewhere safe. So if they escape at night, as soon as the lights come on in the morning or the sun comes up, they're going to go for the darkest spot. So this often means that you just simply need to look around the room, and you look for behind a wardrobe, under a bed, behind some boxes, behind other enclosures, things like that. They almost always go for the nearest, darkest location, and it's very unusual that they climb when they escape. They almost always stick to the floor and follow the floor to the nearest dark area, the fastest spot to hide in, basically. And if you get into that style of thinking, you can do it room by room, and it's generally really easy to find them, especially if they're adults, because they can't get under doors because they're too fat. So that is my very simple but very effective advice for finding an escaped ball python. And if that doesn't work, however, I would say my second top tip is notify your people who live in the same house as you, or your parents if you still live at home. Let them know to be careful where they step when moving furniture, stuff like that, not to injure the snake potentially. And if it does go on for a couple of days and you haven't found the snake, then it's time to look around warm areas, so near heating vents, behind radiators, stuff like that, and kind of expand the search. But what I also wanted to cover in this video was something I see quite commonly is people advising on traps for your escaped snake. I don't know anyone who's caught an escaped snake with a trap. Well, not an escaped ball python. I do know people who've caught escaped colubrids, like king snakes and stuff, with things like the flour trap or the talc trap, where you just leave some talc or flour out on the floor, and in the morning you can see traces of where the snake has wiggled, just like traces in the sand, and you can track it down that way. But I see a lot of other traps spoken about regularly. People say leave the enclosure on the floor with the door open. I've never known anyone have that work. People say create a warm area for the snake to go to. Again, if that warm area isn't also in a dark area, I've never known that work either. And last but not least, the absolute worst advice ever is to put out glue traps like you would put out for rodents or other pests around the home. That is just an awful thing to do to a snake, and I mean, you can find videos of it online, but it's a whole process getting a snake off a glue trap. So that one is out, basically. But while we are on the subject, I just wanted to show you kind of an example of how slow and methodical ball pythons are, and how they do behave when they escape. So what I did was I let an adult male Reuben escape, in brackets. He's one who always tries to get out. He always wants food. He always wants to get to the females. And every minute he acts like he wants to get out of his enclosure. Even though I get him out several times a week and let him exercise and explore and stuff like that. Sometimes when I clean, I do just let him escape, in brackets. But on this occasion, for this video, I decided to let him escape and time it as well. So in these photos, in this first photo, you can see him coming out, having a look around, and he did that for a full 5 minutes, assessing the situation. And then in this second photo, you can see 15 minutes into his escape, he's thinking about where he's going to go. He's decided he really is going to escape. He's going to do it this time. He's forgotten all the other occasions where I've let him escape and then put him back in his tub. And then finally, in the third photo, you can see a whole half hour in, he's explored the top of the enclosure, the area. He's identified a dark spot, which is down the side, and he goes down the side, and his goal is to get to the back of it. So why do ball pythons do this? I don't know. Maybe they just like a bit of, interaction, a bit of exploring and escaping. But yeah, often they just escape to hide. And that really seems dumb, but if you do have a very cluttered room or a lot of furniture, or they make it a decent distance away from their enclosure, it can be hard to find them. So that is pretty much the short and long of it. And the only other things really I did want to add for this video was one problem that I have seen a couple of people post about is a lost snake getting into a heating vent. And I would say that if you do have this happen, you automatically need the help of an outside, heating and air conditioning company to help you deal with it. That is not something I would try and tackle on my own. So that on that occasion, just skip straight to calling a company and getting someone out to help you, someone professional. But finally, I also wanted to cover another question I get, which is how long could a ball python survive lost in a house? And I'm going to say a very long time. Even a baby like this, who's, he's not huge, he's somewhere between 12 and 18 inches long probably. He could survive at least 4 months without food probably. He could probably survive a month and a half without water. And an adult would be much longer. So if you do lose your ball python, don't give up hope. Just keep looking and be methodical about it. Cover every square foot of every possible room and hiding place he could be in, and chances are if he hasn't gotten into a vent, you will find him or her. So again, I hope this has been helpful, but don't hesitate to get in touch if you need anything else, and please do like and subscribe, because that gives me a little boost and encourages me to do more videos. Thank you very much.